So hi guys, thank you for tuning in. We're really excited to, I'm really excited to be able to talk to Nikki Rausch here. And she's one of our speakers in our next event in our mastermind in June. And I took the opportunity, as I mentioned, to get to know each other a little bit better. I'm really excited to learn more about her journey and how she has been able to get to where she's at today. And for you guys that you don't know her, in case you're under a rock, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to find out, more about this empowered woman that is killing it at sales and that is helping other people in general to do that. So Nikki, warm welcome. I want to, maybe you can do a quick introduction of who you are, the name of your company, and what you're doing today. And we're going to take this as a little onion, and we're going to peel this as we get to the core.
Well, that sounds good. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and have this conversation with you. My company is called Sales Maven, and I started it back in 2013. And the idea behind the company was to get people really comfortable with the sales conversation. So my background is I'm a sales professional by trade, and I worked in the technology space for many years, selling tech into big companies and into the education market, and selling kind of multiple channels. So selling at the manufacturer level to the distributors and the dealers, but also spending a lot of time with the end users. So I was a traveling road warrior for many years. I was the person who used to get a Christmas gift from my airline every year because that's how much I traveled.
Oh my gosh.
So, and in addition to my sales background, I have a pretty extensive background in neuro-linguistic programming. And if that's a new term to anybody watching or listening to this, it's essentially the study of communication. So I started studying NLP with the idea that it would help me to build stronger relationships and be better at sales. And it definitely did do that. And it helped me just improve my communication skills overall. So when I started my business, it was the idea of bringing my NLP background and my sales background together and building everything off the foundation of rapport. So my selling skills and the things that I teach clients are, how do you build really strong rapport with somebody? How do you make it easy for them to share what's important to them, what's going on with them? And then how do you have language that makes it easy for them to take the next step? So I teach a structure to a sales conversation. I call it the selling staircase. There are 5 steps to it. I've written a book about it. So that's me. I have a podcast. I've actually written 3 books, and I absolutely love the work that I do.
That's amazing. That's how I got to find you, because somebody from our inner circle was like, you have to talk to Nikki Rausch. You have to get her to come and speak at our event. And I was pleasantly surprised, because when I, obviously we get a lot of people that, we have to talk to this person, but I just really enjoyed our conversation. I thought you did, an amazing job at making me feel that just understood. And also, I feel like our values align so well that I was just so excited to have you in the next mastermind. And something that I want us to talk about is about that neurolinguistics, aspect and how you're using that component. I would love to dig a little deeper. But before we jump into that, tell me how you went from this constant traveling to now doing this sort of a program coaching, what you're doing with people. How did you make the decision? Okay, I'm not going to continue doing this path. I'm just going to change to this other model.
Well, okay. So the real story is that in the technology space that I was in, we did a lot of trade shows. So that was how you kind of got your product out in front of people. One year I actually counted, I did 100 trade shows in a year, which is an extreme amount.
Wow.
So here I was at a trade show one Saturday morning. I was in San Jose, California, and we were all getting set up for this 2-day event. And as I was setting up my booth with my coworkers, I was looking around this huge auditorium, and I was going booth to booth to booth. And I realized that I knew somebody at every single booth, because that's kind of what we do in this industry. You show up, you're at trade shows. So it's kind of the same crowd. And in some ways that's super satisfying, because you're like, oh, I get to hang out with, people I like for the next couple of days. But there was this other part of me that felt almost like like there was something that all of a sudden I realized was missing in my life. And I was like, what's going on here? And I realized that really what it was is I felt like I was just about to turn 40. And I felt like, I don't know that I want to be standing here in 10 years, talking to the same people, doing the same thing. There's got to be something else kind of out there. And I got really curious about that because I'd had such success in the industry that I was in and the career that I was having. And, I was kind of one of those people that was like a staple, like everybody, I kind of knew a lot of people, they knew who I was. But it just felt like there was something missing. And so because I got really curious about that, I ended up leaving my corporate job, deciding I was going to go do something else. And at the time I was helping to build somebody else's business, doing some sales and marketing and event planning, just trying to figure out like, what was I going to do when I grew up? And that's when I started hanging out with entrepreneurs. Is I was helping to grow this other person's business, and I was hanging out with entrepreneurs and a lot of women entrepreneurs. And I love being around entrepreneurs because they're super passionate and they have these great ideas and they want to make this big impact in the world. And as I was getting to know some of them, I realized that a lot of them were struggling with the sales conversation. And sales was something that like was my second nature now because I'd been doing it for so long. So I just started helping some of them on the side, just like, hey, if you're open to it, I've got some feedback for you, or I've got a technique that you could use here. And one person in particular, she was just like a sponge. And every time we would be together, she would be asking me sales strategy and questions. And her sales really took off, so much so that the CEO of her company called her and they're like, something's changed. What happened? What's going on? And she said, I started working with this sales coach, but I wasn't a sales coach. I was just me, helping to grow somebody else's business. Yeah. And so that company got interested in me and they ended up hiring me to speak at their national sales convention. And really my business was born out of that. And I was like, people will pay me money to talk about sales and teach sales. Yeah. So it's like the best job in the world.
That's so awesome. And I think that's crazy because I think we hear a lot of like add value, and things like will happen later on in life. And I think that is the perfect scenario or example of that because you were just adding value through a conversation to somebody and you never know how something like as little like that, it's just like giving an advice or giving some feedback is going to turn into like, okay, now I just made a business out of like, that is crazy, and that's exactly what I enjoyed about like this whole thing of connecting with people and learning. You just never know what's going to happen, like in 10 years, 5 years, like tomorrow, something so small can be a trigger for something gigantic. That's amazing. So today you're helping agency owners, entrepreneurs in general. Right now, like our mastermind is going to be for agency owners, but you're helping entrepreneurs in general. Are you focused more on female? Do you like both female and male? How's that working? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I do work with both male and female, but I focus my attention on female entrepreneurs because I find that, sales programs that they've been through in the past or the way they've been exposed to selling doesn't resonate with them in an authentic level. So I think my message really resonates because I always say, I don't teach people how to sell like me. I teach you how to have some strategy and some structure to your sales process so that your own personality can shine through. And it doesn't matter if it's, you, the business owner of the agency selling, or if it's somebody on your team. If you don't allow for that authentic personality to come through, people feel that on the other side. So I'm really teaching how to embrace who you are and show up in your conversations with credibility and authority and be strategic and build really strong relationships along the way. Because one of the things I truly believe in is, repeat business is always the easiest business to earn, but how can you continue to increase lifetime value of clients to make them want to come back and use your services again and again and again? And a lot of that is built on that foundation piece of rapport. This idea of selling, I would say selling isn't something that you do to somebody, it's something you do with. So I teach a lot around the conversation of sales. Like, you can, as an agency owner, like, how to get leads into the business. But when you get those leads, how do you turn them into raving clients, raving fans, people that are going to shout from the rooftops out in the industry how awesome you are, so it brings more clients, your way. So that's kind of what I focus on.
I love it. Would you say that, and this is a conversation that I've had with one of the other speakers that you're going to meet in the mastermind, but would you say that women are better at sales than men? Like, have you seen any difference? And I'm not pro any gender, like, I think like we're all like in this together, but I'm just interested, because I think sometimes females are more about that conversation, and about that report more sometimes than guys. And I think for them, they have to like, okay, I have to make sure, like, it's something they have to train their brains sometimes to do. What have you seen a difference as you're training people?
I think I do think women, I think by nature, we love to collaborate. I think that's a little bit more of our nature, is collaboration. So that collaborative sales approach, I think for women, is a much easier approach. Now, on the flip side, the things that I think that male dominated sales experience has is, I think men tend to show up with a lot more confidence in the sales conversation, and confidence is super attractive. It draws people to you. Like, we want to buy from experts. We want to buy from people who are credible, who, absolutely, we're getting the best of the best. And I think that male personality, that male like persona sometimes has that heightened level of confidence that really draws people to them. But I think women can have that too. It's just teaching them how to be strategic and collaborative. So the collaborative approach to sales, I think, is more kind of has that female energy to it. But I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I think it's really learning how to embrace who you are and what your gifts are, and how you like to show up in a conversation to put the other person at ease, and paying attention to how does the other person like to show up. Because I can sell to really aggressive, and I came from this industry where it was very male dominated. So I'm used to selling to really aggressive guys, and I can be the aggressive person in the room if I have to be. And that's not my true nature. So my true nature is more of this collaborative, build rapport, make it easy for the other person to say yes. So the things that I teach are really about, and even men too, because like I said, I do have male clients. One of the things I think they appreciate about me is the language skills that I bring to the conversation. Is how can you, instead of say it this way where it may not land, how can you say it like this so the other person is like, yes, that's exactly what I need. So
yeah, I'm excited. I think like the conversation that we're going to have, and just like understanding that background and how to like position, like you're saying, how to position the conversations that we're having to make an impact, not only in what we're selling or, like helping them with, but just creating that relationship is going to be awesome. So what is next for you, Nikki, in terms of right now, as you're working with your people and you're getting to know more people, from different events that I know that you are part of, what's your next goal right now for your business?
So I have two kind of next big goals, and one actually, both of them have come from clients that have come back and said, we want this from you. So I just have now put together a launch package for people who are doing big launches. And I know that we'll see if this resonates with you guys as agency owners. The strategy behind like which ads should you be doing, and, your email and all of that. The piece that I can come in and bring is that language piece of going in and looking at the sales pages, looking at the ad copy, looking at the email sequences that are set up for whatever the campaign, the launch is. And then also being like the sales consultant throughout the launch. So I'm just now starting this new program and doing this because I've had clients request it. So that's pretty exciting, is to do this sales consulting through launch packages for clients. And then next on my horizon, we'll see, maybe for 2023, is to have a certification program for teams, for people, for their teams to go through, not necessarily their sales teams, but just the people that interface with their clients, because I just had a client tell me, I just lost $20,000 a month because one of my people on my team was interfacing with a client and it did not go well. And she doesn't even understand what she did wrong. So I'm going to put together a certification process that when you have people who are interfacing with clients, they need to have some skill set, some language, some way to keep the rapport. And if things aren't, going well, how do you bring it back? So that's my next big thing.
That's amazing. I think that's definitely something that in our space is always needed, because we're constantly, I feel like in the digital marketing space, agency owners are constantly wanting to like figure out what's the next launch, what's the next new thing? Like, how are we like doing like this offer? Like we're very, very big on offers. Yeah. I not so much, but like, I know a lot of agency owners that really thrive on that. It has worked great for them. That's really cool that you're supporting them in that way. And that is the other thing that you were saying, the certification. I think that's something that is so needed in terms of business in general. I was just talking to one of our other speakers about this, and I'm really excited to see how you're all thinking on how to support, at the end of the day, the people that are going to be contacting this, like business owners, clients that you're having. How do you continue to build those relationships? And I do think that even though sales could be something natural, I don't know, that's actually one of my next questions. Like it can come natural with a lot of people, but I think there's some strategy that you have to have, or foundation that you have to have in place. So that way your business as a whole, like you direct them on how do you handle these relationships, right? So, and that takes me to my next question. Do you think that anybody can sell? That's just something that I'm very interested on. Do you think anybody can do it?
I do. I truly do. I do think, there's different levels of the people who are super outgoing, your extroverts that people always think, oh, extroverts are really, really good at sales. And some of them are. Like, I actually fall to the introverted side, and people are often surprised to realize I'm actually quite shy. Like, put me in a room full of people I don't know, and I just want to sit on the wall, like, in the corner and people watch, but I don't let myself do that because I know it's not good for my business. So I truly believe anybody can learn to sell. I got my first professional sales job out of college, and I was the shy, really inexperienced, not traveled, not highly educated, female in this very male dominated industry. And I rose, in that company, I rose to become their national sales manager in a pretty short period of time, as selling alongside these very aggressive, like, men that were, closing these multi-million-dollar deals. Here I come along. And so I truly believe anybody can learn to sell. I'm such a believer that it truly, I think and this goes back to my NLP days, that we learn in neurolinguistic programming, you learn that there's a structure to excellence. And when you can teach a structure, when you can follow a structure, like if somebody came to you and said, here's the directions on how to, it could be a recipe, or it could be directions to go across country, or it could be directions to download some piece of software. When you have directions like that, like here's the step-by-step process, then you can follow that. Doesn't mean that you have to, drive a certain car to get there, or buy the most expensive ingredients to make the recipe or whatever. It's just following a step-by-step process. So this is why I teach a lot of structure to the sales conversation, because if you have a process, like here's the step-by-step process to follow, anybody can do that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I'm excited to hear more about that in the mastermind. You're guiding us through, was it the 5 steps? I think the 5 pillars you mentioned, and I'm really
the 5 steps to the sales conversation. Yeah. So we're going to talk about how to really up your sales game using these 5 steps and figuring out like what's happening in this one step. And, are you able to do this? And if you're able to do this, it makes it so easy to move to the next step. And yeah.
Okay. I'm super excited for that. Can you, and I know that we're going to wrap this call in a little bit, but can you guide us before we go on that neurolinguistic programming that you so awesomely like put together with this? Because I think that's a major differentiator that I found from the people that I've talked to about sales, that you're really like focused on that. Can you share with us why is that important, why that makes a difference, and how can somebody use that in the conversations?
Let me break down the whole term itself. So neuro, the way we process information in our brains. So I'm always thinking about how do things land to the other person when you're in conversation? What could be going on in their brain? How are you helping to make things connect? Or are you, brains are really lazy, like we know that. And we also know that people have decision fatigue. They say, I think the average adult, I've heard a couple different statistics, but they say anywhere from 35,000 to 60,000 decisions a day, the average adult has to make. So our brains are tired and they're lazy, right? So the neuro piece that I bring in is, aren't you making it so easy for the brain to make a decision? Because if you're not making it easy, the brain just won't do it. So the linguistics piece of neurolinguistics is the language. So how can you structure the way the information is delivered in a way that the other person is open to receiving it? Because, have you heard that saying where they go, it's not what she said, it's how she said it.
How,
so I focus a lot on the how. How do you say things so that it lands lightly to the other person, or it lands in a way that the other person's like, yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. And then the programming part of neurolinguistic programming is about habits and patterns. And we know that we all have habits and patterns. Like you have them, I have them. Some of them are similar and some of them are very, very different. And when you can start to notice other people's habits and patterns, then you can adjust your own style to put the other person again at ease. So in my all-time favorite quote, which I'll say is how I bring NLP into my work, is there's this quote that says, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape." So I don't know if you've heard that quote before, but I teach flexibility. How can you show up in a conversation, be yourself, be authentic, but be flexible to make it so the other person is comfortable, right? Like we've all been in conversations with people where, 5 minutes into the conversation, you feel exhausted and you're like, I feel like I need to take a nap. But then there's these other conversations where you meet somebody and you're like, I don't know where you've been all my life, but I could talk to you for days and it feels like minutes, right? So we want to create that conversation piece with people that puts them at ease, because what happens when people are at ease is they're much more revealing about how to earn their business. They're much more open to hearing your message and what it is that you have to offer a solution for them. And they'll stay in conversation with you longer, frankly. So it's all about adding flexibility.
I love it. I think that's something that is so important. And I am excited to learn more about this because you really have to shape the conversation depending on the other person, right? I know as individuals, we have our own, vibe and way of talking and interest, but at the same time, when you're going into a conversation, it's more about how can you add value to that other person? And it really depends on where they're at in their journey. So some people might need just a little bit more motivation. Some other people might need, some tough love, who knows, right? So we have to understand where they're at so that way it can be something interesting and worthy of their time and your time at the same time, right? So it's totally a mix of where they're at, just the feelings, their context, and how do we make this interesting and so exciting to learn more about this. How can people reach out to you, Nikki? What's the best way? Because I remember I went to your website, I was searching you, I was just stalking you like any normal person this day. And I was I just sent you a message over there and we just connected. So you definitely have a really good response over your website, but what's the best way for you?
So the easiest way, I would say the easiest way would be to go to the website, yoursalesmaven.com. And so it's your sales, and Maven is MAVEN.com. And then there's tons of resources on the page. You can contact me through there. You can contact me directly. My email is Nikki, Nikki, at yoursalesmaven.com. And I also encourage people, if anybody who's watching this or listening to this is a podcast listener, I have a podcast called Sales Maven, and that's a good place for us to connect to because there's lessons on there. There's tons and tons of, selling strategies on there. I do on-air coaching calls, success stories with clients, and then I do individual solo episodes for people that are real specific about certain techniques and strategies. So that's also a really good way to connect.
That's awesome. So guys, if you're listening today, because we're actually sharing this in our podcast, and we're going this interview in our podcast and also in our Facebook group where we have 3,000 agency owners that are just like focused on selling and scaling and, just building their business. So if you're listening, make sure to like visit the podcast, visit Nikki at Sales Maven and message her, send her an email, because it's going to be a good conversation. So I'm so excited, Nikki, to like be able to speak to you in person, because I think that's so valuable. I've enjoyed all of our virtual conversations, but I'm definitely looking forward to that. And for anybody that is like, after COVID just said, hey, I do need to get into more in-person events. Like I need to get out of my home and out of the screen. You're definitely invited. So you can visit the mastermind.masterhackers.org. And that's where we have all the information about our next event, where Nikki is going to be sharing with us the 5 steps, to this awesome sales conversation that you can have. And if you're dreading sales, this might be probably the one thing that you need to attend, just to make it easier on you and on your prospects, because at the end of the day, this is just much for them as it is for you. So thank you so much, Nikki, for this time. I'm super excited to meet you soon. And yeah, we'll be continuing this conversation.